Alright, it's time to dive into the second issue of this supernatural horror miniseries set in the Tangent Comics universe, so let's get right into it. Green Lantern Dark number 2 is written by Tate Brombal with art by Werther Deladera, colors by Giovanna Nero, and letters by Tom Napolitano. The title of this issue is New Camelot Part 1. It's been 10 days since the events of last issue, and Green Lantern Rina Mori is still in the small New England town of Lantern's Light. More specifically, she's spent that entire time holed up in a dark room, mostly drinking and sleeping and waking up so she can drink some more. And this really bothers Lunette, who thought the liberation of her hometown was going to be just the beginning of something much bigger. This kid wants a full-blown revolution where humanity takes the planet back one town at a time. No monsters have come to Lantern's Light since Rina dealt with Grundy and his horde, which only serves to reinforce everything that Lunette believes, that the Green Lantern is the key to saving everyone. But unfortunately, one grand act of heroism didn't do anything to change the personal baggage that's been weighing Rina down, and Lunette is losing patience with her. That suits the rest of the town just fine, honestly. There's an overwhelming sense that the people of Lantern's Light need to focus on looking after themselves, at least for the time being. Lunette's brother Kane is being as selfish and isolationist about it as he was last issue, but Boric, who owns the local diner, has a more practical view of things. The battle with Grundy's horde did a lot of damage, and the town was still being rebuilt. On top of that, with Lunette and Kane's mother gone, the last thing Boric wants is to see either of them do anything dangerous. But that becomes much more difficult once some unfamiliar faces stumble into the diner, struggling to remain on their feet after traveling all night in search of help. Word of Grundy's defeat traveled quickly, and people far and wide now looked to the Green Lantern as their only beacon of hope. Children would draw pictures of lanterns on doorways as a way of keeping monsters out, but the idea of the Green Lantern wasn't enough to protect them. This group of travelers came from the town of New Camelot, where every night monsters stalk their streets and steal their children. It used to be that you could save yourselves by staying indoors at night, but recently the creatures have become bolder and more aggressive. Among the travelers is a woman named Grace. One of her children was taken the previous night, and she is desperate. Desperate for her child to be saved, desperate for her hometown to be saved, and the town of Lantern's Light stands as proof that the tales of the Green Lantern aren't just stories. She already saved one town, she can save another, she can save the children, it isn't already too late. Rina begrudgingly agrees to help, and despite the circumstances, Lunette is happy to finally be doing something for the good of other people. This child wants so badly to bring light back to the world, despite her age. We see her family in a flashback before everything changed, and it basically confirms that Lunette is far too young to remember what the world used to be like. Adults want things to return to the way they used to be, but for Lunette, this crusade is about something else. Rina would learn that the hard way once they arrived in New Camelot. Grace guides Rina, Lunette, and Kane on the long trek to New Camelot. Lunette got permission to go since everyone realized that she'd just sneak off and follow Rina anyway, and Kane came along to keep an eye on his sister. Once they arrive, Rina is immediately confronted by the overwhelming sense of dread and despair that she'd been trying to avoid dealing with. This place is even darker and less welcoming than Lantern's Light was before the fall of Grundy. These people were prisoners in their own homes, and even that shelter wasn't guaranteed to keep them safe anymore. And as they walked through the streets, hushed whispers spoke of the legendary Green Lantern who'd come to save them all. This, more than anything, is the source of Rina's problems. She sees how messed up the whole entire world is, and she doesn't believe that she can fix it by herself. But she has to, because she's the only superhero left, which puts the entire burden on her shoulders alone. And the more people tell stories about her, the more their expectations for her grow. The more she wants to just hide away in a dark room and never come out. Ever since becoming the Green Lantern, Rina hasn't had the freedom to just be herself. Not when the entire world needs her to be someone else, someone she's not. A hero, a legend, a savior. And unfortunately, the person who makes Rina feel the worst is Lunette. Her biggest fan, her loudest cheerleader. The one person in all the world who has the most faith in the Green Lantern's ability to do good. Lunette represents an extreme concentration of everything Rina wishes she could run away from. all of the fears and self-doubts that lead to her self-medicating with an unhealthy amount of isolation and alcohol. She finally expresses this out loud to someone when she and Grace share a drink after the kids go to sleep. And I have to point out this one art mistake, where Rina is clearly supposed to be holding her drink, but they just forgot to draw the bottle. It's minor, but I thought it was funny. It was hard enough for Rina to figure out what to do before meeting Lunette, but now she's got this kid following her around, looking up to her, acting like there's nothing she can't do, and Rina doesn't know how to handle that burden when, as far as Rina is concerned, it's guaranteed that the great and powerful Green Lantern is going to fail. And Grace just thinks it's funny how similar Rina's experience is to motherhood. This incredible responsibility that changes your life forever, that catches you completely off guard no matter how prepared you think you are to handle it. How you'll mess up and fail over and over again, even think that you're not cut out for the job. But the people you're responsible for don't see it that way. To them, it doesn't matter if you really are the person you're trying to be, they'll still love you for everything you try to do. Unfortunately, Lunette wasn't asleep, and all she took from that conversation was that Rina thinks of her as a burden. This leads to an outburst that makes Lunette's motivations crystal clear. She had always believed in the Green Lantern's ability to change the world for the better, but she's been much more adamant and aggressive about it since Grundy fell. And it all comes back to the terrible fact that her mother died. With everything that happened, it can be easy to forget that Lunette and Kane lost their mother the night Grundy's horde flooded the streets of Lantern's Light. Now they're left alone to figure out what to do next, and Lunette has chosen to double down on her fixation on the Green Lantern, combining her feelings for her mom with her belief in the Green Lantern. Her mom, Andy, was a good leader who held her town together against impossible odds, without compromising what she believed in. And the Green Lantern, in Lunette's mind, is supposed to be this perfect idol who can do the impossible. She is the light. She is hope. Because that's what Lunette needs her to be. The world took Lunette's mother away, so Lunette needs to believe that the Green Lantern can change the world into a better place where that kind of thing can't happen anymore. But when she sees Rina delay going to rescue the captured children, when she hears that Rina thinks of her as a burden, Lunette snaps. She's hurt, she doesn't know how to properly deal with it, and now more than ever she's relying on Rina to live up to a child's perfect vision of a hero. Which, on some level, I can get behind, since providing hopeful motivation is a big part of what superheroes are for. But we can't ignore the fact that Rina is a person. She has her own baggage to deal with, and she can't just magically become the perfect paragon that everyone wants her to be. This extremely traumatic surrogate mother-daughter dynamic gets interrupted by the giant freaking monster that bursts through the ceiling and abducts Lunette. She was holding up her little lantern, which was still filled with some of the Green Lantern's flame, and just before the creature broke in, Rina's own power flared up, so I wonder if that's what attracted the monster to them. Maybe that's also why it took Lunette but left Kane. Either way, Rina's got no choice now but to follow Lunette right into the heart of the monster's lair. Now, a few things before we finish. New Camelot is a reference to the legend of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, which is significant to the Tangent universe because the Tangent Comics version of Batman is an Arthurian knight who was cursed to remain inside his castle for centuries until he finally atones for his crimes. He eventually figures out how to project his own soul into an empty suit of armor like this is Full Metal Alchemist, and then that haunted armor can go out into the world and do good. And that's what Batman is in this universe. And we get a few shots of some mysterious figure who's clearly going to be Batman, watching the Green Lantern from high atop the walls of the big spooky castle where all the monsters seem to be coming from. So we are most likely going to see a team up and or battle between Green Lantern and Batman in the next issue. Secondly, we actually get a good deal of information about what happened to the world. That flashback I mentioned earlier was 4 pages long and filled with tons of world building, and a lot more societal commentary than I expected, comparing and contrasting the post-apocalyptic world this series takes place in with the normal world we live in today. Even in days of blue skies and bright sunshine, we allowed our world to become a place of hopelessness and despair, where the best someone can do is survive but never really thrive. Some people lived their lives in shock and disappointment over how cruel of a place the world had become, while others were fine with it, and in fact had guided the world to this point intentionally, because they could enrich themselves at the expense of other people. So when the world finally fell to the Great Eclipse, and the unrelenting darkness saturated the land and blotted out the sun, twisting the planet into something horrific, there are those who wonder if this isn't simply the true nature of the world we've made finally showing its face in the open. Regardless of what anyone believes, it still began when the objects fell from the sky, like a meteor shower of pure darkness. People have different names for the objects that fell. Obsidian seeds, necrospores, eclipso crystals. An uncountable number of them burrowed into the ground and took root. They began to warp the very geography of the planet. Land masses split into fractured pieces, erupting volcanoes and deep chasms formed out of nowhere. Cities and towns were crushed and swallowed up by massive sinkholes, like the ground was suddenly betraying everything that once stood upon it. Lastly, the final 2 pages of this issue show us what's left of Grundy crawling his way out of the shadows into a lush green oasis filled with so much plant life and sunlight that this barely even looks like the same planet. There he meets a woman with red hair and a bright orange dress made of flowers that also look sort of like monarch butterfly wings. Compared to everything else in this book, this character looks like she embodies the concept of warmth and springtime. She's quickly revealed to be working with Grundy and is out to kill the Green Lantern. Hell, maybe she killed the previous Green Lantern too. I don't know who this is, but the heavy emphasis on nature makes me think that maybe it could be the Tangent Universe version of Poison Ivy, since I don't think there is one already, at least as far as I know. Maybe they'll expand on what we observed last time, that Grundy and his zombie horde had these purple flowers growing out of them, and may even be what was animating their bodies. I theorized that these were the Tangent Universe version of the Black Mercy plants, and if that's true, while it would still make sense for this to be someone like Poison Ivy, there's also a possibility that they'll keep it closer to Green Lantern lore and make this the Tangent version of Mother Mercy, the being who created all the Black Mercy plants. I don't know, I'm just speculating wildly at this point. Whether I'm right or wrong, I can't wait to find out who this character is. So that does it for Green Lantern Dark number 2. Now it's time for you to go to the comments section and tell me what you thought of this issue. What do you think about the new layers of complexity added to Rina and Lunette's relationship? Are you excited to potentially see Tangent Batman? Who do you think that character at the end was? Tell me all about it, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it. I'll be back soon to talk about issue 3, so until then, thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan, we'll talk again soon.